Now, here's more of the TMA Morning Show with Charlie James.
And good morning. It is 8 minutes past 8 o'clock right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA, WTMA.com. And we want to welcome to the program this morning the treasurer of the state of South Carolina, Mr. Curtis Loftis. How are you, sir?
Hey, Charlie, I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
We are doing fantastic, ready for some cold weather to hit the Palmetto State in the next...
I'm always in the minority because I like cold weather.
Oh, do you? Oh, see, look at you. Look at you. All right, South Carolina State University, a judge has told the Board of Trustees, do not fire Elsie. What was that about?
Well, I mean, that's part of this litigation. You know,
Yeah.
we all have lawyers. We all know lawyers, and we all like and love lawyers, but they also hate them when they're on the other side of the fence.
Exactly.
And this is just that litigation playing out. It's part of a much bigger story, and that's, you know, it's a bit of a tragic story about South Carolina State. President Elsie, who I got to know pretty well over the last couple of years, is going to go through all of these things because he has to in order to try to get as much money as he can. And
Right.
the school's going to want to pay as little as they can. So that's how all that plays out. So I think there'll be more judge movements coming down. But again, it's part of that bigger picture of South Carolina State and what's going to happen. There's been a lot of conversation. People from Charleston, like Jimmy Merrill and others, have really focused in, excuse me,
Right.
trying to say, how can we fix this problem once and for all? And that's where we really need to focus. I mean, I always get aggravated when I see people trying to get a payout on their contract. I don't want to be someplace I'm not wanted, you know?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, $70 million in debt. How did we get there?
Well, the numbers are all over the place, and one reason the numbers are all over the place is that when the Budget and Control Board sent out accountants, outside accountants, down to the school to try to figure out exactly what the problem was and how big it was, they were just stiff-armed at every level. We still don't have the final numbers, and you know, I'm in the treasurer's office, so if I had a problem and if a group said, hey, we will send you a professional accounting team, we will help you rebuild your books, I'm thinking, wow, I love these guys.
Yeah, free help.
You got to have your books. And they didn't do that. And so that's a cultural problem down there. It's not of the students. It's not of the average professor or the staff. It's at the top, and that's where the problem lies. And there's a bill in the Senate and a bill in the House now that hopes to deal with that.
All right, we're talking with South Carolina Treasurer Curtis Loftis. Now, I don't understand how were they even able to stiff-arm these auditors, because a lot of people were saying, why wasn't an independent audit done? But you guys tried to do that, right?
That's right. It's been a lot of money. And this is what the funny thing about government is. You know, I've been the treasurer for 4 years, just got reelected.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came into office, I was thinking big things. You know how you turn on Fox News or you turn on CNN and see the big things. Nobody ever talks about the details.
Right.
Well, the truth of the matter is the big things don't matter. It's always the details. You can say to the newspaper, we want to help South Carolina State. And you can say, if you're South Carolina State, we want help.
Yeah.
But if you push them away, and that's why it's like everything else, the devil's in the details. And we've got real problems down there. We've got to know the amount of the debt, and we've got to know the amount of the unpaid vendors. And we have some idea, but we're not the kind of certainty that any business person would want.
I think one of the figures we saw was 10 to 11 million in vendors alone.
Yeah, at a minimum.
Good gracious.
And you know, colleges are out there on their own anyway when it comes to how they finance. Government financing government accounting doesn't really manage a lot of the things they can do because they bring in these foundations, they bring in outside forces, they shuttle money around in ways you wouldn't think. Even the really good schools, big schools that you know by name, they do all of that, and it's just not standard.
But isn't that scary?
Yes, it's very scary to me. In South Carolina, and I ran on this, and this is something I failed at.
Mm-hmm.
When I ran for office, I said there is nobody in South Carolina state government that is responsible for reading an audit. And there's not. We do audits all the time, and nobody reads them. And the main reason they don't read them is because nobody has the authority to follow up. And I've been trying to change that. Don't have any luck. I run against a brick wall constantly.
Right.
We've had a interim state auditor for 7 years. We should think about that. Have you ever heard of such a thing, an interim position for 7 years?
No.
So I got a state auditor works for a budget control board, got a committee up, members of the board, your staff. We're trying to get a state auditor. We keep offering the job to people who make $500,000-$600,000 a year. Well, the job only pays $140,000. So you know what the answer is going to be before you even ask them. But see, this is the
big no.
People, that's right. This is the details that people don't know. We have an interim state auditor, and we have a system where nobody is required to read the laws. That's the kind of thing that nobody knows about, but it's so important.
That's insanity. We have these audits. The audits are done, but nobody will take the time to read them and find out what's going on. Why even do them?
Well, that's the question I've asked. And you know me, I'm pretty outspoken. What I say is, let's just do away with the audit, because I think that if you believe you have something, is worse than not having it at all.
Yeah.
The people believe that the audits of South Carolina keep fraud, waste, and abuse from happening. They're not designed to do that. They don't do it. And even if by chance they did, nobody's going to read the thing. Now,
are we talking about just for the universities here, or just every audit that's done, nobody follows up?
Everywhere. Now, what they'll say, if you remember in 2010-11, it's reached back a little bit, but the Unemployment Insurance Agency, we were $750 million in the hole. Think about that number, and it makes that little $70 million of South Carolina State look small.
Now, you said $750 million in the hole?
That's right.
$750 million?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was clearly stated in the audits for several years before. It never got raised to the level where it should have been, and nobody paid much attention. I mean, when these audits are done, they send a copy to the treasurer, a copy to the governor, a copy to General Assembly.
Right.
But we have stacks and stacks and stacks. So even if you read them, you don't have the authority to do anything about it. So it's not much point, right?
You're right.
So I try to get all that changed. It didn't work. But again, we're straight from South Carolina State. But in most of life, it's in the details what matter.
Yeah.
There's a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate for South Carolina State. The bill in the House gives the responsibility to manage the affairs of the South Carolina State to the Budget Control Board. Now, a lot of people don't like the Budget Control Board, but it is 5 people, and you know our names.
Yeah.
Right? And we have staff. Now, the Senate has a bill, and they want to give it to an unnamed committee. Now, there's already a committee. You know, the General Assembly passed a committee, a blue ribbon committee last year. There's a working group. They've been working for about a year. Well, they hadn't done much good. And I suspect you and nobody that's listening to us now can name a person on that committee. And that's quintessential South Carolina politics. It's nobody's ever accountable.
We're talking with State Treasurer Curtis Loftis. You're boggling my mind this morning with all of these, and I love what you said. I mean, the devil is in the details, and you're telling me that all these audits are done all across the state. Nobody follows up, and even if nobody reads them, and even if they do read them, they don't follow up with them. They don't have the authority.
That's right. And it's just like the Comptroller General can't pick up the phone and say, hey, I read in your audit X. You got to do it.
Right.
The treasurer, the governor. I mean, the governor has some responsibility for her agencies, but that's, you still it has to be elevated to her level. And it's certainly not something about the governor, because she's an accountant by trade. She gets this stuff. And she's been a good partner for me, because she, when I start talking debits and credits, she's ahead of me.
Yeah, right.
But, Charlie, it all comes back. This all circles around, and I know it's kind of been on a tear here, but it's like the gas tax. They want $48 billion.
Right.
And how they come up with that number is they spend $10 million of taxpayer money. They get a bunch of special interests together, and over a couple of years, special interest and bureaucrats, who you've never heard of their names, come up with this plan. So all of a sudden, we've got a $48 billion problem.
So it's not our lawmakers coming up with this. It's the special interest groups that are coming up with
this. That's right. And so, they raised a lot of money. They put themselves there. And in this bill, it's all in the details. Like, if we pass the $48 billion gas tax, there's no law that says they have to do any of that road work.
Amazing.
They can go off and do something else.
Amazing.
It gets back to this. If you're reading this stuff, if you're into it, it's a problem. When it comes to South Carolina State, we just need an open and accountable governance structure. We've got to have people that understand finance. We probably ought to have a president that's more of a technician. And let the board member go out there and sell the schools, right?
Right,
but
yeah.
We need somebody who's going to spend that time there. And I think probably most of your listeners hope and pray that we're successful. But there's only so much money that can be spent.
Right. All right. So, but I mean, I think you'll agree, like we talked with Chip Limehouse the other day, everybody wants the school to stay open.
That's right. That's right. But we can only spend so much money, and that's the problem. And I can promise you, no matter what it is, no matter what you're talking about, the number you hear is never the actual number. It's just the way government works. It's always a bigger number.
How do you do it? How do you get up and go to work every day knowing you have to deal with this?
For the longest period, they always talk about the general fund. Well, we've got a general fund balance of $7 billion or whatever it is that year. Nobody ever said, well, wait a minute. What about all those other funds and federal funds? In fact, I was just by chance, I was involved with this in 2007 and 2008, and I started just saying to everybody, we've got to give the whole number. And that was kind of when all that started. I can't take credit just for myself, but I was certainly putting the heat on. You just, in state government, it's like federal government, what you see is theater. It's what's behind the curtain. This is important, and that's the details. Yeah. And believe me, I take on these battles, and I get beaten. I get the heck beat down on a regular basis. But I don't care. You just gotta kind of make it fun.
You just get up and do it again.
Yeah, that's right. And these audits, I'm gonna keep trying to get a decent state auditor who's full time, who we have confidence in. And when an audit comes back, he's gonna look at it. And he's gonna raise a red flag, right?
Well, we hope. I mean, we hope you can get that done. We certainly do. All right. Well, Treasurer Curtis Loftis, we appreciate you being on the program today and raising a lot more questions than you answered.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Wow. The inner workings of South Carolina government. You got to love them.